The peaceful galaxy was shattered in a single moment. It was an event so small yet so profound, it ignited a firestorm that no one could have predicted. On a distant planet in the outer rim, a child's life was taken. A life so fragile, so innocent, and yet it carried consequences that would shake the entire galaxy to its core. The child, a human, had been caught in the crossfire of a galactic war that had raged for centuries. The Zathorians, a powerful alien race, had claimed the planet as their own, driven by an insatiable thirst for control and power. The humans who lived there, an isolated colony, had tried to stay out of the conflict. They had no interest in fighting, no interest in taking sides. They just wanted to live in peace. But the Zathorians, with their cold, calculating minds, saw humanity as nothing more than a tool, something to be used and discarded. The child, caught in the chaos of the invasion, was a casualty of that mindset. The Zathorian commander, in a moment of arrogance and cruelty, ordered the child's execution. It was a simple act, but its consequences would reverberate across the galaxy. The galaxy was vast, made up of countless systems, each home to different species with their own cultures, their own histories. And yet, when the news of the child's death reached the central hubs of power, something strange happened. It wasn't just another tragedy. It wasn't just another death in the long history of the galaxy's conflicts. No, this was different. The death of a single human child had sparked something deep within the heart of humanity itself. It was a call to arms, a cry for justice that could not be ignored. Earth, the homeworld of the human race, had been watching from afar, carefully observing the struggles of the galaxy. For centuries, humanity had remained on the fringes, not directly involved in galactic affairs. They had built their own civilization, content in their corner of the universe. But this was personal. On Earth, the news of the child's execution spread like wildfire. The people, who had long been kept in the dark about the galaxy's turmoil, began to rise up in anger. How could this happen? How could a single life be so easily discarded? They demanded answers, but the Galactic Council, made up of representatives from all the major powers, refused to intervene. They dismissed the death of one child as insignificant, an unfortunate but inevitable consequence of war. But to the people of Earth, it was not just one death. It was a declaration of war. They couldn't just stand by and let this happen. The time for passivity was over. And so the leaders of Earth made a choice. They would take action. They would not rest until justice had been served. General Sarah Harris, the commander of Earth's military forces, was the one chosen to lead the charge. She was a woman of extraordinary skill, known for her calm demeanor and strategic brilliance. She had always believed that humanity's time in the galactic spotlight was yet to come. Now she saw the moment was upon them. "We won't let this go," she said to her team, her voice steady but filled with fury. "We'll make them understand what it means to take a human life." General Harris' plan was simple but bold. Earth would send a message to the Zathorians and the rest of the galaxy. They would not be passive any longer. The death of this child would mark the beginning of something much bigger. The first strike came swiftly. Earth's forces, armed with cutting-edge technology and battle tactics that the galaxy had never seen, launched an attack on the Zathorian fleet. It wasn't a full-scale invasion. At least not yet. It was a warning shot, a demonstration of Earth's resolve. And the galaxy took notice. The Zathorian Empire, caught off guard by the ferocity and skill of the humans, scrambled to respond. They had underestimated Earth. They had thought of humanity as nothing more than a primitive species, incapable of challenging their dominance. But this attack was different. The humans fought with a fire that none of the other galactic races had seen before. They fought not just for victory, but for something deeper, something more personal. The galaxy's other powers watched in silence. They knew that the actions of Earth would have consequences. Some feared what might happen next. Others, more cynical, saw an opportunity to exploit the growing tension. But no one could deny the fact that Earth was no longer the silent observer it had once been. Humanity had found its voice, and it would not be silenced. The first spark had been lit. The death of a single child, a tragedy that could have been forgotten by the galaxy's cold, indifferent powers, had instead set in motion a chain of events that would change the course of history. The galaxy had made a mistake, and now they would pay the price. Earth's vengeance was not just about retaliation. It was about something deeper. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity would never again be overlooked, never again be treated as inferior. This was just the beginning. As Earth's forces gathered strength, their message became clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The galaxy would have to reckon with the wrath of a species that had been pushed too far. And it was only a matter of time before the full extent of humanity's power would be felt across the stars. The first spark had been lit, and there was no turning back. The galaxy was vast and filled with untold mysteries. Civilizations rose and fell, and the stars watched silently as one species after another claimed their place in the endless expanse. But in all of its vastness, something had shifted. Humanity, once a quiet observer on the edge of the galaxy, had begun to make its presence known. The death of that single human child had been the spark, but the fire it ignited was now unstoppable. Earth's response was swift and calculated. General Sarah Harris had led the initial strike, sending a warning to the Zathorians that humanity was no longer willing to stay silent. But what she and her command team didn't fully realize was the scope of the consequences their actions would bring. The galaxy had always been divided, with power shifting between various species and alliances. The Zathorians, once thought to be the most fearsome empire in the galaxy, were now caught in a storm they never saw coming. The humans had proven they were capable of things the Zathorians had not anticipated. The quick, effective strike against their fleet had humiliated them. The Galactic Council, which consisted of representatives from various interstellar empires, watched this development with growing concern. The Zathorians were not just another species to be pushed around. They were a powerful empire, and the Council's members understood the dangers of anchoring them. But the humans, they were different. No one had expected them to rise up like this. No one had realized just how powerful Earth had become. As news of humanity's response spread, fear began to take root in the hearts of those who had long been comfortable in their power. The galaxy's leaders couldn't ignore what had happened. This wasn't just about a skirmish between two species. It was a warning. If Earth had the power to strike back with such force and precision, what else could they do? Whispers began to spread among the other races. Some of the more neutral factions began to question the Zathorians' actions. If humans could strike back with such fury over the death of a single child, what would they do if something more terrible occurred? The balance of power was shifting, and no one could predict where it would land. On Earth, the response was united. The loss of the child had affected everyone. What had started as a cry for justice had turned into something more. The leaders of Earth knew they couldn't back down now. They had declared war, not just for vengeance, but for the future of humanity. Every human, from the highest government officials to the youngest child, knew that this was their moment. They couldn't afford to lose. General Harris had no illusions about the scale of the war ahead. She knew that the Zathorians would retaliate, and likely, the rest of the galaxy would soon take sides. But what she hadn't anticipated was the overwhelming support humanity would receive. People from across Earth's colonies and beyond were rallying to their cause. They didn't care about politics or alliances. They cared about one thing: justice for the innocent life that had been lost. The military was in full mobilization. New recruits poured into the training centers, eager to fight for their planet. Earth's factories were now fully dedicated to producing the weapons and technologies needed for the war that was coming. Ships, once used for exploration and trade, were now being retrofitted for battle. Earth was preparing for a conflict the galaxy would never forget. Meanwhile, the Zathorian Empire was reeling from the blow. Their leaders had never taken humans seriously, but now they had no choice but to reconsider their position. The Zethorians had built their empire on fear, using their superior technology and ruthless tactics to dominate weaker species. But humanity was different. Humans were relentless. And worse yet, the galaxy now knew it. The Zethorian leadership, humiliated and enraged, began to prepare for full-scale war. They sent out emissaries to the other empires, trying to rally support for their cause. But the other species in the galaxy were divided. Some feared the rise of humanity and wanted to stay neutral, while others began to question if the Zethorians were truly the right side to be on. The galaxy was starting to fracture. The humans, though outnumbered and inexperienced in galactic politics, had something the other species didn't: determination. They had something personal to fight for. It was no longer just about a single child. It was about Earth's place in the galaxy. It was about the survival of their people and the right to be treated with respect. Humanity was willing to fight not just for survival, but for their dignity. The galaxy now watched with bated breath as Earth's military forces prepared for the next stage of their campaign. General Harris stood at the forefront of this war, the weight of her responsibility heavy on her shoulders. She knew that this was just the beginning. They had taken the first step, but there was a long road ahead. The Zethorians wouldn't go down without a fight. But there was something in the way the humans fought that was different from any other species. It wasn't just about strategy or technology. It was about their heart. And in the coming battles, it would be that heart, that unyielding will, that would make all the difference. The galaxy had made a fatal mistake by killing a human child. And now, they would witness the full force of humanity's wrath. The sparks had turned to flames, and the stars themselves would soon feel the heat. There was no going back. The galaxy was no longer the same. A new wave of fear had spread across the cosmos, and it wasn't just because of the rise of humanity. It was because the galaxy had underestimated the power that humanity possessed. As the first full-scale conflict between Earth and the Zethorians began to take shape, other species looked on with a mix of curiosity and dread. The Zethorians had rallied their forces quickly. Their fleet was one of the most formidable in the galaxy, known for its sheer firepower and terrifyingly efficient tactics. But humanity had already begun to change the rules of warfare. It wasn't just about the size of the fleet or the might of the weapons. It was about the spirit of those who fought. General Sarah Harris stood in her command center, looking out over a holographic display of the galactic battlefield. She had spent decades preparing for something like this, but nothing could have truly prepared her for the reality of it. The enemy was closing in, their ships swarming like a storm, but Earth's response had been swift and brutal. Humanity wasn't going to back down. The death of that single child had awakened something in the people of Earth. They had united in a way no one had expected. The Zethorians had never faced an enemy like this before. Earth's tactics were unorthodox, aggressive, and relentless. They weren't playing by the rules of the galaxy. They didn't care about politics, alliances, or the usual protocols. They were fighting for something far more personal: justice for one lost child, and the survival of their people. The human military machine was working at full capacity, and their unity was their greatest strength. Across the galaxy, the news of humanity's war efforts spread like wildfire. The Zethorians had expected to quickly crush any resistance, but the longer the conflict dragged on, the more uncertain their victory became. Ships that had once been feared in the galaxy now found themselves outmaneuvered and outgunned by Earth's forces. The balance of power was shifting, and for the first time in a long while, the Zethorians began to doubt their superiority. Earth's retaliation wasn't just about brute force. It was about intelligence, adaptability, and a relentless pursuit of victory. The Zethorians had underestimated the ingenuity of humans. Earth's scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to develop new technologies, some even superior to what the Zethorians had in their arsenal. Human ingenuity had always been one of their greatest assets, and now it was being put to work in ways that no one had predicted. But the Zethorians weren't going to take this lying down. They were angry and determined to prove that they were still the dominant force in the galaxy. Their next move would be to strike deep into human territory, hoping to break Earth's resolve and end the war before it could escalate further. The human forces, though, were ready. General Harris and her advisors knew what was coming. The Zathorians were nothing if not predictable. They would attempt to hit Earth at its core, taking out major cities and strategic points. But the humans had prepared for this. The human military had already set up defensive systems across key locations, making it harder for the Zathorians to launch a successful strike. The war had escalated beyond a simple act of revenge. It was no longer about a single human child. The stakes had grown exponentially. It was about humanity's survival, about their right to exist in the galaxy without being treated as inferior. No longer would they bow to the wills of more powerful species. The Zathorians had made a mistake. They had underestimated humanity. Now, they were about to feel the consequences. As the battle raged on, Earth's forces began to push back. They fought with everything they had. The galaxy, once a vast and indifferent space, was now watching in awe. Earth's ships, though smaller and less technologically advanced than their Zathorian counterparts, fought with a ferocity that was unmatched. The humans had something the Zathorians didn't, the will to win at any cost. The Zathorian fleet, once proud and imposing, began to retreat. The sight of their ships fleeing from Earth's forces was a blow to their pride. For the first time in centuries, the Zathorians were on the defensive, and they didn't know how to handle it. They had crossed a line when they killed a human child, and now they were paying the price. But this was only the beginning. The war was far from over, and the Zathorians still had their pride. They would strike back harder, faster, and more ruthlessly than ever before. But Earth was prepared. Humanity had learned a powerful lesson from their first strike. Never underestimate them. In the far reaches of the galaxy, other species began to take notice. Some were frightened by the power Earth was showing, while others began to question their own alliances. The Zathorians had been the dominant power for so long, but now their empire was in jeopardy. They weren't the only force in the galaxy that could strike with vengeance. As the battle raged on and Earth's forces pushed forward, one thing became clear. The death of that single human child had changed everything. What had started as an act of revenge had grown into something far greater. The galaxy would never be the same again. The stars had witnessed the beginning of something terrible. The fall of one soldier had ignited a conflict that was now burning through the galaxy. Earth's wrath had only just begun. The cost of killing one human life was far greater than anyone had ever imagined. The once feared Zathorian fleet now found themselves on the defensive. Their advanced ships, capable of devastating entire civilizations, were no match for the relentless and creative warfare that Earth had unleashed. Across the galaxy, the tides of war were shifting, and it was clear that the Zathorians were beginning to lose their grip on the situation. In the heart of the Zathorian command ship, the Emperor sat in grim silence. His fingers tightly gripped the arms of his throne, his sharp eyes scanning the reports of retreating forces and mounting casualties. He had never anticipated such resistance from a species considered so primitive by the galactic standards. Human tactics had thrown the Zathorians into chaos. Their expected swift victory had turned into a prolonged, humiliating defeat. The Zathorians had always prided themselves on their superior technology, their impenetrable fleets, and their unrivaled military might. But the humans, they realized, had something far more dangerous, an unbreakable spirit and a burning desire for justice. They weren't simply fighting for survival. They were fighting for the memory of a child, for the soul of their people, and the Zathorians had underestimated that. General Sarah Harris, leader of Earth's military operations, knew this was the turning point. The Zathorians were reeling, their great fleet scattered and vulnerable. Earth's ships were far from perfect, and their resources were limited, but humanity's resolve was stronger than ever. The cost of the war had already been high, but there was no turning back now. "Ready the final assault," Harris ordered, her voice calm but resolute. "We strike now. before they can regroup. The battle plan was set. The next move would be humanity's most daring yet. Harris had studied the Zathorian fleet's weaknesses and exploited them with surgical precision. Every move they made, every strike they launched, was carefully calculated. The Zathorians, though experienced in battle, were now fighting a different kind of war, one where their conventional strategies were useless against the relentless will of Earth's fighters. In the Zathorian command center, there was panic. Communications were scrambled. Reports from the front lines painted a picture of despair. The once mighty Zathorian ships were now struggling to keep up with Earth's unexpected assault. A single human soldier, a simple child's life, had sparked a galaxy-wide chain of events that no one had predicted, and the Zathorians were now paying the price. The Emperor stood, his mind racing. He had never thought it would come to this. The humans had shown them a side of warfare they had never seen. Their strategy was different, unpredictable. It wasn't just about firepower. It was about survival, about taking everything they had and pushing forward with unyielding force. It was something the Zathorians couldn't comprehend. Until now. The battle raged on, Earth's forces pressing forward with a determination that seemed unstoppable. Human fighters, driven by the need for revenge and justice, fought with a raw intensity that was unmatched. They weren't just soldiers. They were parents, children, and citizens, all united under one cause. Their planet had been harmed, and now they would make sure that no one else would ever harm them again. As Earth's forces pushed deeper into Zathorian-held space, the rest of the galaxy watched in shock. This was a war unlike any they had ever witnessed. The Zathorians, for all their power and might, were now on the back foot. Their once proud empire was crumbling, piece by piece, as Earth's revenge burned its way through their defenses. In the final moments of the battle, as the Zathorian fleet began to disintegrate under the weight of Earth's overwhelming force, the Emperor made a last-ditch attempt to regain control. He ordered a massive counteroffensive, hoping that sheer firepower could turn the tide. But it was too late. The human soldiers were prepared, their tactics flawless, and their will unshakable. The Zathorian fleet was scattered, its ships burning in the vacuum of space. The Emperor's once great empire was now a shell of what it had been. The cost of their actions, the cost of killing that one human child, had been far greater than they could have ever imagined. Back on Earth, the victory was bittersweet. The loss of life had been staggering on both sides, but humanity had prevailed. They had exacted their revenge, but they had also proven a point to the galaxy. Never again would they be underestimated. The human spirit, once thought fragile and weak, had shown its true strength, and now the galaxy would never forget it. General Harris stood silently, watching the destruction of the Zathorian fleet on her command center's display. There was no celebration, no cheers. The war was over, but the wounds were deep. The universe had been forever changed. Earth had proven that it was no longer just a planet to be ignored. It was a force to be reckoned with. As the remnants of the Zathorian fleet vanished into the stars, the galaxy would have to come to terms with a new reality. Humanity had shown what it was capable of, and it had done so by fighting for something deeply personal, a life, a child's life, that had been taken too soon. The galaxy would never forget the price of that single death. The Zathorians had thought they could take one human life and walk away unscathed. But they were wrong. The cost had been far higher than they could have ever imagined, and the universe would now bear witness to the consequences of that fatal mistake. The final blow had been struck. The Zathorian fleet, once a symbol of power and dominance, was now reduced to ruins scattered across the void of space. The echoes of humanity's wrath resonated throughout the galaxy. The war had ended, but the true cost of the Zathorians' mistake, the death of one human child, had sent shockwaves through the fabric of the cosmos. Across Earth, news of the victory spread like wildfire. The people of the planet, who had long been underappreciated by the wider galaxy, now stood at the center of galactic history. Their defiance, their anger, and their unyielding resolve had rewritten the rules of war. No longer would the rest of the galaxy view Earth as weak, insignificant, or naive. They had proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that even the smallest spark of humanity could ignite a fire that consumed even the mightiest of empires. General Sarah Harris stood before her commanders, her hands clasped behind her back, her face betraying no emotion. The victory was theirs, but it had come at an immense cost. Her heart still ached for the innocent lives lost, both human and alien, in the heat of battle. The decision to wage such a war had never been easy, but it had been necessary. Justice had been served, but there was no glory in what they had done. "Our job is far from over," she said quietly to the room. "We've won the battle, but the war for our future has just begun. The galaxy will never look at us the same way again." Her words, though calm, were filled with a gravity that no one in the room could ignore. They had sent a message, a clear, brutal message to the galaxy. Earth had not just fought for survival. They had fought for their dignity, for every human who had ever lived, and for the child who had lost their life. The galaxy was now at a crossroads. The Zathorians, once the dominant force, had been humbled. Their empire was in tatters, their fleets shattered. But what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? Would they be next? Would humanity be forced to take its revenge even further, seeking to punish every species that had ever looked down on them? Earth's leadership knew that there was no turning back. They could no longer simply be passive observers in the universe. They had fought for their survival, and in doing so, they had earned the right to stand among the galaxy's most powerful. Humanity was no longer just another species. They were a force to be reckoned with, a civilization that would no longer bow before anyone. But with this new strength came responsibility. General Harris and the leaders of Earth knew that they had to tread carefully. The galaxy was filled with powerful forces, each with its own ambitions. Many would see Earth as a threat to their own power, and there would be those who would seek to challenge humanity's newfound position. Some would want to take advantage of Earth's vulnerability, seeking to strike while they were still recovering from the war. "What happens now?" one of Harris's officers asked, breaking the silence. The general took a deep breath before responding. "We rebuild. We reassert our place in the galaxy, but we do so cautiously. The war with the Zathorians is over, but that doesn't mean all our enemies are gone. We must remain vigilant, and we must let the universe know that Earth will not be a target ever again." The decision to rebuild was not just about repairing the physical damage to Earth's cities, fleets, and resources. It was about restoring the confidence of the people. Earth had suffered a great loss, but it had emerged victorious. The world had united under one banner, driven by a shared sense of purpose and justice. That spirit of unity would be crucial as they moved forward, for humanity was stronger now, but it had also made powerful enemies. But as humanity began to pick up the pieces, a new challenge began to emerge. The destruction of the Zathorian Empire had left a power vacuum, and many different factions within the galaxy began to stir. The other races, those who had long considered humanity insignificant, were now watching closely. They saw the potential in humanity, but they also saw the danger. Some were already making plans, preparing to confront Earth before it could grow too powerful. General Harris knew that Earth could not afford to rest on its laurels. The galaxy was no longer a place where they could simply survive. They had to thrive, to secure their place, and to prove that their rise was no fluke. But the lessons of the past would not be forgotten. Humanity's strength had been born from the ashes of their most painful tragedy, and they would never again be caught unprepared. As the remnants of the Zathorian fleet drifted in space, scattered and broken, the leaders of Earth made their next move. The galaxy was not a quiet place, and it would never be the same again. Earth had changed the rules, and they were determined to make sure no one ever crossed them again. The universe had been given a glimpse of humanity's wrath, and the galaxy would never forget the cost of killing one human child. The victory over the Zathorians had sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Their empire, once vast and terrifying, now lay in ruin, scattered across the vastness of space. Earth had struck back with a ferocity that no one had ever expected. But the question now was, what would humanity do with this power? Could they protect their newfound strength, or would they be consumed by the forces that watched them from the shadows? In the aftermath of the war, the people of Earth had to rebuild. The cities had been ravaged by the violence of war. The once proud fleets of Earth, now victorious, were in tatters, needing repairs and reorganization. But the greatest challenge was not the physical repairs. It was the emotional toll the war had taken on every human being. Families had lost loved ones. Friends had lost friends. The world had been forever changed. Yet, the people of Earth were not easily broken. They were survivors. They rebuilt. They reformed. They adapted. And as they worked, they grew stronger, not just in strength, but in resolve. General Sarah Harris, now a hero of Earth, knew that the time had come for humanity to show the universe that they were no longer to be underestimated. No longer would they be seen as weak or insignificant. "We must prepare for what comes next," General Harris said to her advisors. "The galaxy is watching. We've made a mark, and there are those who will seek to challenge us. We have to make sure that what happened to the Zethorians is a warning to anyone who might think otherwise." Earth's military, now the most formidable in the galaxy, was reorganized into a force that would rival any empire in the universe. The advanced technology they had seized from the Zethorians had been studied, reverse-engineered, and integrated into their own systems. Every piece of technology that had been part of the Zethorian arsenal now worked for humanity. But this victory was not just about power. It was about something greater: justice. The child whose death had sparked the war had not died in vain. Their death had ignited a fire that had burned through the stars, a fire that would forever mark humanity as a force not to be trifled with. But it was not only vengeance that Earth sought, it was peace, a lasting peace, one where Earth and its people would never again be at the mercy of those who saw them as weak. The leaders of Earth knew that, despite their power, there would be those in the galaxy who would try to exploit humanity's newfound position. Other empires, kingdoms, and species would not be happy with Earth's sudden rise. The galaxy had been used to its old power structures, and now that those were disrupted, chaos could easily follow. General Harris, as the leader of Earth's military, knew that her job was not over. "We must make it clear," she said, "that Earth is not a threat to the galaxy, but we will fight to the death for our survival. We'll defend our people, and we'll do it with everything we've got." While the rebuilding continued on Earth, in the far corners of space, a new kind of tension began to rise. The Zethorians were no longer the dominant force, and those who had previously aligned themselves with them were now uncertain of their future. Some saw Earth as the new power in the galaxy and sought to ally with them, while others sought to challenge them, eager to test humanity's resolve. There were whispers of a new alliance forming in the shadows, an alliance of races that had once ruled the galaxy, but now saw their hold slipping. They knew that Earth had become a threat, and they could not afford to let humanity grow any stronger. It was during these uncertain times that Earth's leaders were forced to make their most difficult decisions. They had won the war, but they had not won peace, and the galaxy was a dangerous place, one that could turn on them at any moment. "We must be ready," General Harris told her council. "The victory we achieved is only the beginning. If we want to ensure the safety and future of humanity, we have to make sure that no one dares to cross us again." But as the leaders of Earth made their plans and prepared for what was to come, they couldn't ignore the question that lingered in the back of their minds. How would the galaxy remember them? Would they be seen as heroes who had avenged the wrongs done to their people? Or would they be feared as a new power in the galaxy, one that was too dangerous to ignore? The war with the Zethorians was over, but the war for Earth's place in the galaxy had just begun. They had gained the respect of the universe, but at what cost? The victory had been theirs, but the consequences of that victory would ripple throughout the stars for years to come. And so, Earth began its journey into this new era, with the wreckage of the Zathorian Empire as a testament to their wrath, and their reputation now solidified. Humanity prepared for whatever came next. They would fight, they would rebuild, and they would stand tall. Earth had earned its place in the galaxy, and nothing, no empire, no force, would ever take that away. The stars would never forget the day humanity had risen up and struck back, and the universe would never be the same. In the weeks following Earth's victory, the galaxy became a place of uncertainty. The once predominant empires that had ruled for centuries now found themselves shaken by the sudden rise of humanity. Earth had proven its might, but the cost was high. The consequences of their wrath rippled across the stars, and no one knew what would come next. General Sarah Harris stood before the leaders of Earth's military, her mind focused on the future. The Zathorians had been vanquished, but their loss had left a power vacuum in the galaxy. Humanity had filled that gap with shocking speed and efficiency. Now, the galaxy was watching Earth, some with fear, others with curiosity. "We've sent a message," General Harris said, her voice firm. "But the galaxy won't just sit back and let us continue without challenge. We must prepare for what's coming. It's only a matter of time before someone tries to take us down." The war had left Earth with an unprecedented advantage in technology and military power. Their fleets had been rebuilt, and new alliances were forming with species that had once been oppressed by the Zathorians. Earth's people now controlled vast stretches of space, but maintaining peace and stability was not as simple as holding power. Every empire, every kingdom, every species, and faction in the galaxy was reevaluating their position in the wake of Earth's rise. One such group, the Tralaxians, an ancient race that had once been allies of the Zathorians, had begun to stir. Their fleet, vast and formidable, was rumored to be on a collision course with Earth's territory. These beings had a deep-seated hatred for humanity, remembering the violence Earth had brought upon the Zathorians. "The Tralaxians are already mobilizing," one of Harris' generals, Admiral Markov, said grimly. "They are preparing for something big. I don't believe they'll simply accept our dominance." Harris nodded, feeling the weight of her decisions. The galaxy was a vast, unpredictable place. The Zathorians had learned that lesson the hard way. Now, it was Earth's turn to prove they could hold their ground. She couldn't afford to let any threat go unnoticed. The peace that had followed the Zathorian War was fragile, and if Earth was to survive, they needed to act quickly. "Deploy our reconnaissance ships," Harris ordered. "Let's see what they're up to before they strike. We need to be ahead of them, not just reacting." As the fleet began to mobilize, tension spread across Earth's military. The victory over the Zathorians had been swift, but now they were facing something more dangerous, an opponent who would not be easily defeated. The Tralaxians were an old, powerful species with deep ties to the galaxy's history, and they were known for their ruthlessness. While Harris and her advisors focused on military strategy, something unexpected began to happen across Earth. News of their victory had spread like wildfire, and it ignited a sense of pride in the hearts of humanity. The people who had once been looked down upon by the other species were now the champions of the galaxy. The sense of unity that had formed in the wake of the war became a new force. Earth was not just a place of survival, it was a beacon of strength and resilience. But even as the people of Earth celebrated their victory, there was a growing sense of unease. They had defeated the Zathorians, but they hadn't defeated the galaxy's other powers. There were still those who saw Earth as a threat, and their hatred would not be easily silenced. In the quiet halls of Earth's council, Harris met with the leaders of Earth's newly formed alliances. The humans had forged strong ties with species they had once considered enemies, but there were still many who saw humanity as an unpredictable and dangerous force. "We have to be careful," said Seriela, a leader from one of Earth's new allies, the Oteri. "You've done something no one else could. But there are those who will see your strength as a challenge, not a victory." "Let them come," Harris replied, her voice cold. "If they want war, we'll give it to them. But even as she spoke with confidence, Harris knew that the stakes were higher now. The galaxy was a place where power could shift in an instant, and Earth's dominance was still in its infancy. The Tralaxians, the Galactic Councils, and other powers would not rest until they tested humanity's resolve. Earth had to be prepared for anything. The preparations for the upcoming battle with the Tralaxians were underway, but the looming question remained. Would Earth's power and newfound alliances be enough to keep them safe? Or would their victory over the Zethorians be short-lived, leading to even greater battles on the horizon? In the coming days, as the Tralaxian fleet gathered and Earth's forces continued to prepare, one thing became clear. Humanity was no longer a race to be underestimated. They had learned the hard way how to survive, and now they were determined to show the universe that they would never go down without a fight. The next battle would not just be a test of strength. It would be a test of humanity's will to survive and to protect the future of their people. The galaxy had already learned that when humanity struck back, it was with a force that could shatter the stars. But would that force be enough to stop the rising tide of those who sought to bring them down? The universe would soon find out.